Alright guys, I am back to finish this thing up. What is sex like for straight men? This is a continuation of my Jubilee reaction to this video where a bunch of straight men are asked a bunch of questions about sex in order to try to figure out what sex is like for us straight men. And so if you haven't seen my previous videos, go check them out. I will link them in the description below. But let us finish this because this is a long video and 3 reaction videos based on it is just too much for me, so I'm excited to get this over with.
Have you ever been self-conscious about your penis size?
Alright, starting off with a good one. Have you ever been self-conscious about your penis size? So I think if anyone in this video says no, they haven't, then either they are extremely well endowed or they are just lying. Because no matter how big you are, I think, unless you're like the top 0.001% of people and penis sizes. If you're a guy, you have questioned this at some point in your life. You have wondered if it is big enough, if it can satisfy a woman, if it is too small, all these things. Because, you know, porn and media and all these different outlets are all telling us that penis size is incredibly important. And that, you know, you're more of a man, I guess, if you have a bigger penis. And so it's a really anxiety-invoking thing. And I think if any one of these people says no, they haven't ever had anxiety about it, they probably aren't being truthful. Let's see what they have to say though, because who knows?
No? Short answer?
So the straight answer is yes, because there's an unfortunate stereotype with people of my ethnicity that goes around, not saying that it's true or false, but with that stereotype, it gets to your head just a little bit because, I mean, you don't know if it's true or false. Especially like when I see myself naked and just like, okay, is this normal? Is this not normal? I don't know.
Yeah, so that first guy saying no, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to me. Of course it has crossed his mind at some point in his life, I would have to imagine. Otherwise, he's just either making it seem like he has a bigger penis because, oh, I don't have to worry about it, I've never been anxious about it, which he might be doing, or he actually has a huge penis. And so I would still say, even if he has a huge penis, it would have to be like I said, like top 0.001% of size for him to not consider it a little bit. But the second guy hits it right on the head, basically. I mean, you always are looking and seeing, is this normal? Is this what it should look like? Especially because the penises that we often see are in porn, and the angles are different than what we can see when we look down. And so you're always kind of trying to judge from different angles and different perspectives, and it's really impossible to do. So, of course, there is that anxiety. And like I said, society is telling us from all directions that this is a really important thing and that it really matters.
Especially as a black male, you know, there are a lot of expectations that are very, 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 very lofty. You expect to have like a very large penis. And you realize that you don't have a very large penis. And so for a long time, I think a lot of my anxiety was rooted in was me being a disappointment and not meeting those expectations in real time.
That is a really interesting perspective, one that I don't have because white guys is kind of like, whatever. I don't think there are any like penis size expectations, whereas like Asian people, you have like the stereotype that they're small, and then black people, you have the stereotype that they're big, and so white people are kind of in the middle. I guess we're just supposed to be like average. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, and it's probably even worse for black men because of that, because the expectation is so high, and if you just have a normal average size penis, then it's almost as if you're smaller because you're not living up to those expectations. So that's actually really interesting, and I'm glad that he had that perspective.
It's something that gets a lot of focus. When you go to the store and you buy a pack of like boxers or something, you're gonna see a guy who's ripped and he's packing like 10 to 12 down there, you know? And it's like, what the hell? Like, is that what we're supposed to look like?
When you enter like middle school, you start to watch porn, and like you see these guys that like in the scenes and they're like, and then it just makes you think like, oh, I can't compete with that, look at me.
Yeah, and unfortunately a lot of us people that have grown up with the internet, me, I was kind of on the tail end of when the internet was becoming popular, but still my first sexual introductions were through pornography. And so we are already seeing this sample size that is not generalizable to the public. We're seeing the biggest of the biggest, and so we think when we're seeing that as children growing up, our first sexual experiences are through pornography. We're thinking that that's normal when that is the top 1% or even higher, and so it really warps our expectations. And like the guy said earlier, men have body image expectations as well in media. You know, it seems that this idea that women have such high beauty standards and stuff, our culture and society would make you think that men don't also face those body image issues. I think it's even more prevalent now with social media, where you see all these guys that are jacked up on steroids or whatever they're doing, they're photoshopping their images, and all these people, they have crazy bodies, and we think that we have to live up to that. So that pressure, that body image pressure that women experience, that happens to men too. It's not mutually exclusive. There are standards that men, we think, oh, we're supposed to look like that. So yeah, that's a good observation. You know, this is probably the best question they have asked yet in this series, and it's like 2/3 into the video, so I don't know what happened with those first questions.
Are you afraid to try butt stuff?
So, are you afraid to try butt stuff? So here's the thing with that. I don't think you should be afraid of it. I think you should try new things. If you are really against it though, the one thing that you should definitely not do is say that butt stuff is weird or pass any judgment on it or any negativity toward that. Even if you don't want to do it, just say that's personal preference, I have nothing against it. And the reason you do that is because right when you introduce any judgment or negativity into sex, if you're talking about this stuff to your partner, that judgment or negativity will transcend just what you have talked about. So if your partner is thinking, oh, they might judge me for liking butt stuff, what if they start judging me for other stuff as well? And so it's going to really shut them off and kind of make them put up a barrier, and they're not going to want to experiment and try new things in sex, and they're not going to be as open to the sexual experience as they would be or would have been had you not passed any judgment. So you really need to make sure if you're discussing these things, even if you are super against it and think butt stuff is the worst stuff of all time and it's terrible and sinful or whatever it is, make sure you don't pass any negativity on any part of sex, because you never know what that is going to do to your partner's mental state. And because the brain is the most important sex organ and that sexual pleasure is primarily derived from psychological stimulation, psychological factors, we don't want to cloud that and potentially harm the quality of our sex by doing so.
Yeah, I don't want anyone coming near my butt. What?
I think if I were the receiver, yeah, I'd be afraid. And I think I'd be afraid to even be the giver. I don't know. I've heard some horror stories.
I don't know. I'm a little nervous. Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but like I think I gotta try it at some point. I'm open to it, kinda, I'd say.
If I walked out this door and there was the opportunity to get pegged, I probably would decline. And I don't even know if I could say why, because I know I'm not gay. It's not a question of like my sexuality. I wouldn't say afraid. I could be talked into it. There you go. I could be talked into it in the right place, in the right time. I could say yes.
I ran into that topic one time, and just to, avoid double standards, I gave it a try, and not for me.
Oh my god. I did try it and I didn't like it. It was actually the first time I had sex. I see your finger like go, and then I was like, whoa. Tried it, didn't like it, but if you're into that,
First
okay,
time.
that's okay.
Kudos to those people who tried it, because I guess it's a little scary if it's your first time doing it. You should be open to these things. I think the one guy had the perfect attitude where he would be hesitant, but he's not going to be judgmental about it. That's the main thing. If you're discussing anything sexually with someone, don't pass any judgment on anything they bring up. So it's just going to shut them off to other sexual stimuli, not necessarily that one thing. Because if you feel like you're going to be judged during sex, you're not going to be able to be as expressive, as open, and receptive to the sexual experience. You're going to be a little bit closed off, and that's going to kind of dampen the pleasure that you can experience.
Have you ever pressured someone to sleep with you? Do you regret it?
You ever pressured someone to sleep with you, and do you regret it? I would hope that if anyone did pressure someone to sleep with them, they would regret it. I have never done this. I don't think you should. So, I don't know. Let's see what these guys have to say about it, because I'm curious if any of them would even admit to this.
Absolutely not, and I would regret it. Yes, I've never done that. That feels horrible. So no, I've never done that.
You know, sex just isn't worth that to me. And that's something that the other person would have to carry with them for the rest of their lives. And that's something that I'd have to carry with the rest of my life.
It was like me and my girlfriend, and you know, I was in the mood and she wasn't, so maybe I was trying to sweet talk her a little bit, like, hey, come on, just, you know, that, if anything. Never to someone, never to a stranger, never to anyone that I was just acquaintances with. It was more like a serious girlfriend or someone that I was really comfortable with, for sure.
Yeah, I would say I have. When I was younger, yeah, I regret it, you know, because now the way that I look at sex is it's something special, and you shouldn't be going around and sleeping with everybody. It should be with someone that's special to you. And if you ever have to convince someone to have sex with you, then it's not worth it. I definitely felt pressured from my friends, but I take responsibility for my actions, you know, like I am in control of my body, and it was my making, so.
Wow. So he opened up completely, which I respect him for that. He shouldn't have done what he did. At least he regrets it. You shouldn't ever pressure people for the reason he said. Sex is a mutual thing, and there is a human connection involved, and good sex will be a mutual thing. It'll be a complete equal kind of experience where you're doing it together. If you are going in selfishly, just because you want to like get off for whatever reason, then this, first of all, the sex isn't going to be good, and it's just going to be worse because that person's not going to be into it because they don't actually want it. I know there are a lot of pressures for people to have sex at younger and younger ages, and if you're a virgin past like 15 nowadays, you're like a beta male or whatever it is, but don't ever do this because you will regret it, and it can ruin someone's life, and it really isn't worth it. The sex isn't going to be good. It's not going to be mind-blowing sex, and mind-blowing sex wouldn't even be worth it. So just never do this ever, and you'll be fine.
Or done anything sexually that like you didn't really want to do?
Yes. Yes. I thought I made it pretty clear to her, you know, no, I don't want to do this, you know, get off of me. So yes, I'll answer that bluntly.
That is also an interesting perspective because, yeah, it's not just one way. It's not only men forcing sex on women. It happens to everyone. And so, yeah, it's not a good thing. Don't do it. That's all I have to say about that. Just don't do it. Alright, ending it here. That will do it for this video. Finally gone through this whole thing, and I think this was probably the best one in terms of their responses and questions. These were really good questions and really great answers. We got a lot of good perspective, so I'm glad I finished it off strong with this one. So if you like this video and you found it informative, leave me a like. I would really appreciate it. If you are new, please consider subscribing. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye, guys.